Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 10th of October 2022, and these are the stories that we will be discussing in detail in the course of the show. We'll begin with the Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Saab, who has talked about the adoption of a resolution on climate catastrophe in Pakistan by the United Nations General Assembly, and he says it is a big achievement. He also said that China, the United States and Russia have come on one page for the first time for the people of Pakistan, and that is a huge achievement. Now, of course, this consensus resolution backs Pakistan's efforts to strengthen emergency relief and rehabilitation that is direly needed in our country, followed by 1/3 of Pakistan that is under water, and scores of people who have been affected by these floods, 33 million and counting. This is going to be our first story, the floods, the United Nations resolution, and of course COP27 that is going to be held next month, which our Premier Shehbaz Sharif Saab is going to be co-chairing along with Egypt as well as Norway. So this is also a huge achievement for Pakistan under the current circumstances, and of course the way Pakistan has highlighted the effects of climate change, that Pakistan is now also going to co-chair COP27 next month. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Indian propaganda as far as Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and of course Pakistan's stance on it is concerned. Pakistan and Germany gave a joint statement as far as the issue of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir that has not yet to be resolved since decades. And on that came a very sharp reaction from the Indian side, and the Foreign Office also then came up with a sharp rebuke of the type of reaction that the Indian Foreign Office came up with as a result of this joint statement. This is going to be our second story. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about World Mental Health Day that is being celebrated today. The overall objective of this day is to not only raise awareness about mental health wellness across the world, but also to mobilize efforts to support mental health. And in countries such as Pakistan, it's very important because of different taboos that exist in our society. Let's begin with our very first segment, and that concerns climate change, Pakistan, the adoption of the United Nations resolution by a thumping majority, and also Pakistan co-chairing COP27. More in the following report.
Pakistan is grappling with an unprecedented climate emergency which requires multilateral response and a generous assistance. United Nations General Assembly has adopted a resolution to express solidarity with Pakistan's government and people in the wake of recent devastating floods that inundated a third of the country. Consensus resolution also backed Islamabad's strengthening of emergency relief, rehabilitation, reconstruction and prevention in the wake of recent climate catastrophe. At a time of geopolitical divide, the resolution proposed by Pakistan was co-sponsored by 151 countries from all regions, representing more than 2/3 of UN membership. Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto termed adoption of a resolution on climate catastrophe in Pakistan by United Nations General Assembly as a big achievement, raising alarm about humanitarian crisis unfolding in Pakistan. UN Secretary General has stated that Pakistan is on the verge of public health disaster and severe hunger is spiking. Population Council has recently launched a report which includes considerable granular data about vulnerabilities among flood victims, such as 5.1 million are children under the age of 5, 940,000 are senior citizens with special needs, and 610,000 are pregnant women. The world must change course and place climate change at the heart of the policy making, otherwise an apocalyptic future awaits humanity.
Syed Shahid Kazmi, who is the country coordinator for Pakistan Humanitarian Forum, joins us online. Kazmi Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Kazmi Saab, two huge achievements as far as Pakistan is concerned. The first, of course, the adoption of the resolution by 151 countries that talks about Pakistan's being affected by the climate change, and secondly, Pakistan co-chairing COP27. How do you see both of these very important decisions taken by the world body?
Thank you, Batsab. First of all, I would like to congratulate Government of Pakistan, specifically the Foreign Minister, Mr. Bilawal Bhutto, and Minister for the Climate Change in the entire nation. I think this is something very great. Then within the times when we were talking about that we are so isolated from the world, but when we were also advocating the rest of the world that this is the climate catastrophe, and we were talking about the climate justice. So as you mentioned that a resolution unanimously passed by 151 countries, over 2/3 of majority, and top of the line, United States of America, Russia, China, everyone has supported Pakistan on this climate catastrophe and climate justice issue. And You can see in the remarks of the UN Secretary General, again, he reiterated the importance of the climate justice, and he again stressed upon the needs of the people of Pakistan and government of Pakistan. So this resolution, solidarity with and support for the government and people of Pakistan and strengthening of emergency relief, rehabilitation, construction and prevention in the wake of the recent devastating floods is something, a bigger achievement by government of Pakistan. So I must say that this is something that the global world is acknowledging, that the climate change is a global issue. World is acknowledging that the Pakistan floods is not only the Pakistan floods. This is not only Pakistan who have to face it, but this is something the entire world and the global community have to bring in their solidarity with the people of Pakistan. So I would again say...
And of course, Kazmi Sahab, you know, I'd like to highlight something that Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab, our foreign minister, said, and that is also something that you've talked about, is that countries such as the United States of America, Russia and China were on one page as far as, you know, adoption of this resolution that backs the situation in Pakistan, and of course expresses solidarity with Pakistan's government and the people in the wake of these devastating climate change effects in the form of floods are concerned. Do you feel through resolutions such as these, there is hope for the world for being on one page when it comes to serious issues that plague the entire world, such as climate change?
See, that's what I was trying to convince and expressing in my initial remarks, that this is something coming together the third majority of the global community in United Nations, big countries like we mentioned, the three names, they have unanimously passed it. They have presented their solidarity with the Pakistani people and government. So my hopes are better than the last, maybe 2 weeks earlier when we were talking about the climate justice issue. We were talking about advocating and influencing the global community, educating the global leaders that Pakistan floods is not only the Pakistan issue. But now after this resolution, I must say that there is a great acknowledgement by the global community, and not only, I don't see it only in the perspective of that the world will be coming up to support Pakistan and Pakistani government and people in the reconstruction of recent floods, but I think complementing this with the next COP, which is going to happen very soon, and Pakistan is also co-hosting this
exactly.
next
And
COP.
that is also a huge feat for Pakistan, because it is a realization by the world body that Pakistan is not only affected by climate change when it is one of the least carbon emitters, but all Pakistan is also doing its utmost through its public and its private organizations to help those in need. Now, I understand that, you know, this resolution is a very welcome step, but what in your point of view needs to be done to place climate change at the heart of global policy making?
I think for the global community in the most recent decade, when we are talking about the climate change, and the global community is convinced that the climate change is a real issue for the whole world. So Pakistan is a case study. So this case study, I believe, I hope that the world would be able to benefit from the case study which Pakistan is facing, and then it is a bigger case study for the people and government of Pakistan. And now when we are taking this global commitments, when we are talking and we are considering the global acknowledgements on the subject of climate change in Pakistan, so now what we are doing, the responsibility lies on the government of Pakistan now, that how we are going to better present our case, how we are engaging with a more accountable, efficient way, the reconstruction, rehabilitation and climate resilient infrastructure we are building in the country. And we are, maybe after a year, we can go back to the entire world and we can say, see, this was the case we presented to entire community, world, global community, and now you can see that this is what we have progressed on this. This is how we are accountable to the world. This is how the funds, the support what we have received from the global community is being utilized and spent in a very transparent and efficient way. And our institutions, specifically our public institutions who are working on the subject of climate change, are more capable now. And we have finally, I think, after a year, we must say that we have learned something from this case study and from all these efforts.
More than us, Kazmi Sahab, I think it's the world that needs to understand and realize the real face of climate change and the effects that it can have on countries such as Pakistan. Now, coming to COP27 that Pakistan is going to co-chair, and of course that is a huge achievement for Pakistan as well, the realization by the world body that Pakistan is a country that they need to listen to. Now, in your point of view, now that our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has been entrusted with the vice presidency of COP27, how can we effectively utilize this position in order to further strengthen Pakistan's struggle as far as climate change is concerned?
See, Umar, COP, there is a series of COPs since many years. So you can see all the global commitments and commitments towards climate change which are being made are the result of the COPs. You can see that recently in Pakistan has received one of the Green Climate Fund, which is being implemented in the northern areas of Pakistan to combat with the glaciers out melting, blah, blah. But I see this COP very important, specifically in the times when there is a flooding in Pakistan and Pakistan is advocating the global community and climate justice issue. So I think this COP again will be very, very important for Pakistan. I believe that we are going there with a very strong voice. We are going there with a very good preparation. From the NGOs community, I can tell you, I can share with you that we are engaging with the Ministry of Climate Change to better to make and to prepare ourselves in a very better and efficient way, and going there with a one voice, Pakistan government, civil society, United Nations and others with a one voice in the COP and present our case to the entire world, specifically when it comes to the climate financing. I think
all right, Kazmi Sahab, in your point of view, what should be Pakistan's strategy now that it is undergoing and it has been subject to a huge effect of climate change in the form of floods? What should be Pakistan's strategy to trigger a revolution as far as climate change is concerned, and implement policies and implement procedures that benefit not only Pakistan but the world?
Umar, as I mentioned earlier, this is a case study for two-sided case study. One is for the global community to learn from Pakistan, and one case study itself is Pakistan to learn from these floods. So our response now, our strategies, everything is the world will be looking at us, that how we are going, or we are going in a more effective and efficient manner to build back better. How we are prioritizing the climate resilient infrastructures, how we are going to adopt the climate resilient climate smart disaster risk management strategies in the country, how we are going to protect our livelihoods, how we are going to protect our people infrastructure in the future to cope up with the similar nature of disasters which are climate induced disasters. So I think this COP and following the COP, everything now, the actions at least in the coming time, coming months, coming year from the Pakistan government will be very, very important, and they will have been definitely, if the support is coming from the outer side. So I believe that the outer world would be looking very closely to see that how we are progressing with this.
All right, Kazmi Sahab, there is a certain global will as far as helping Pakistan is concerned. We've seen it by the different methodologies that the world has applied. Pakistan obviously needs much, much more than what is currently being given to it, but I hope in due time it will receive the necessary aid that it so requires for its people, so that they can, not only restart their lives, but also restructure their livelihoods and their houses in such a manner that they can avoid future calamities such as that has confronted Pakistan. Now, how can Pakistan sustain this global political will to support the government's medium and long-term plans in order to combat climate change? What should be Pakistan's strategy in your point of view? The will is there. We have seen it through the United Nations resolution and now COP27 in Pakistan co-chairing. But how should we sustain it? Keep on sustaining it.
See, I think togetherness and collective efforts is very important, and then also by showing some on the progress and again showing some of the ensuring some of the accountability to the affected population, what we are doing right now in relief, recovery, rehabilitation. We need to show the world, to the entire world, that see, we have received the support from the global community. We spent this money in an efficient manner, and now our strategies and policies, whatever we are applying in the building back better stage, or the reconstruction or rehabilitation, are more climate resilient. They are informed with the scientific evidences, they are informed with the researches, and there is a togetherness. Not only the government of Pakistan is taking forward the climate agenda, but all the international actors, all the humanitarian organizations, international NGOs, international research institutes who are working with government of Pakistan in this catastrophe, supporting the government of Pakistan, and now at the next stage when we are talking about the post-disaster need assessment, we are talking about the recovery plans. So all these things are more, you can say, more inclusive, and they are having the ownership of the entire global community who is present in Pakistan. That's why
All right.
I was mentioning that this is the right time now that we need more inclusive approach and togetherness to show the entire world that on the climate subject we are more committed, we are more empowered, and we are ready to tackle these issues, and we are ready to bring more evidences and present evidences to the entire global community to combat with these challenges in the future.
All right, an inclusive and a collective resolve is the need of the day as far as Pakistan is concerned, where we have seen the global will as far as helping Pakistan in these testing times are concerned. Now that Pakistan is also going to co-chair COP27 on the 6th of next month, as well as the adoption of the resolution to help Pakistan in this time of need. These are, of course, positive steps from the world body that gives a sign that they are ready to help Pakistan. Now, Pakistan needs to take advantage of this and tell the world that it needs help, and it needs short-term, medium-term and long-term goals, and the world needs to be on Pakistan's side so that Pakistan can strengthen itself again after this calamity. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Whether on one hand the brutalities continue in the Held Valley, when the German and the Pakistani side have a collective media stakeout and they highlight the issue of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, there's a very strong reaction from the Indian side, and thus our Foreign Office also has a strong rebuke where it talks about the issue that confronts the region, and that is Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and that India needs to look inwards on the way it is continuing with these barbarities within India and the Indian Held Valley before pointing the fingers at anybody else. More in the following report.
The regional reprobate India has wicked history of hatching conspiracies against Pakistan in its bid to accomplish Hindutva's expansionist idea of so-called Akhand Bharat. Pakistan has categorically rejected preposterous remarks made by Indian Ministry of External Affairs on the recent joint press takeout of foreign ministers of Pakistan and Germany. Indian gratuitous remarks have exposed the desperation of the country, as during bilateral meeting with German counterpart, Foreign Minister apprised the issue of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, particularly after the events of August 2019. On the subject of Kashmir, the German foreign minister said that she truly believed every country in the world has a role in solving conflicts and ensuring that we are living in a peaceful world. In Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Indian troops in their fresh act of state terrorism martyred 2 Kashmiri youth in South Kashmir's Islamabad district. The youth were martyred by Indian troops and paramilitary forces during a cordon and search operation in Thangbaba area of the district. Pakistan has relentlessly urged the international community, particularly human rights and humanitarian organizations, to condemn India's barbaric state terrorism in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and ensure that Kashmiris are given their right to self-determination as enshrined in the relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions.
Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja, who is the Executive Director, Center for International Strategic Studies, Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and is also an expert in foreign affairs, joins us online. Dr. Sahaba, thank you very much to have joined us. It had been some time that we had talked on this very burning issue, that is Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And herein comes the fact that Germany acknowledges the fact that the issue of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is one that needs to be resolved through international will, and comes the reaction from the Indian side, which is of course unwarranted and completely falsified. And then of course our Foreign Office also rebukes and points the finger at India for all the barbarities that it is continuing to perpetrate within the Held Valley and within India. Is the world slowly, in your point of view, realizing the fact that it needs to also pressurize India, because they have done it through different reports, but all these reports now need to be translated into action so that India stops its barbarities?
Yes, definitely. See, as I always say, that it is how come it is possible that in the longer India would be able to shrug all the subjugation, the torture, the excessive violence in India Jammu and Kashmir, and international community would not notice it. So it is not only, I really appreciate the statement of German, though it is very late, but still we are, it is good that someone at least is raising the world conscious. But it is not only the German foreign minister, but if you say you have seen or the news during last few the U.S. ambassador also visited Jammu and Kashmir, and India again objected that as well. So somewhere, as we always know that Modi regime is living in a propaganda bubble in which they think that whatever they would do, that would not be visible to the world community, and whatever they would say, their assumptions would be believed by the international community as realities. So it is good that finally someone is trying to knock some sense in the head of world leaders.
But Dr. Asma Khawaja, this is where things are interesting. You said knocking some sense into India, but the way the reaction has come from Arindam Bakshi, I don't think that any sense has prevailed as far as the Indian side is concerned. When he pinpoints the finger, in fact, at Pakistan for terrorism, when it itself is involved in terrorism within the held valley, within India, against their minorities, then it talks about how the FATF needs to, work for Pakistan so that it reduces its terrorism, when in fact the FATF should be blacklisting India on all the activities that it is perpetrating within India and the held valley.
Exactly. That is why Indian leadership has this false or incorrect perception that they can do anything and get away with that. So definitely whatever Indian, and this reaction of Indian leadership was expected because India never accepts. Because acceptance means they are accepting their war crimes, their crimes against humanity in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So why would they do? But definitely, if international community can at least have this courage to speak about the atrocities, then maybe one day India would have no other option, or no one would ask India if they agree with it or not. And we also have to see that Indian foreign policy and during Modi is always in support of violence. It's a violent, aggressive posturing and strategy to further national interests through use of violence and by supporting violence in international system. So definitely it is. Like for me, it was coming. As you know, we talked about the Indian decline or India converting into this electoral autocracy, the decline in all indexes of democratization and democracy. World Forum declared India is no more a democracy, and why it happened? Only because of Indian removing policies against Muslims and policies of subjugation and violence and torture in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Recently, you must have seen that Indian minister, the radical mindset, is asking Hindu voters to boycott Muslim businessmen. And don't they know that in India's business interests, they rely on their trade and economic deals with Middle East. So if they would boycott, so this, if you can see any rationality, the way Modi has polarized its society and the way Modi is approaching to this event or incident, we have seen so many Indian leaders criticizing Modi's Kashmir policy. And those Indian leaders were of the same opinion that the way what Modi has saw the Indian government would lead. So the way they are inculcating violence and injustice, and they are suffocating, as Aditi Rai rightly said, that Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir is the biggest quarantine in the world, and that too not optional but imposed by a subjugating colonial power. So,
All right. Dr. Sabha, I'd like to ask you one last question, and that concerns, and I would refer to what the Foreign Office said in the statement following Mr. Bakchi's explosive statement, if I can say that, quote unquote. They said that both the foreign minister, that is the German foreign minister, and our foreign minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab agreed there was a role and a responsibility of the international community, as well as a need for intensified efforts from the UN with regards to a peaceful and just resolution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. The way the German foreign minister talked very candidly and openly about the Kashmir issue, do you feel that the world's understanding, reaction and action as far as Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is finally changing for the better?
We can hope so, but definitely this needs to be, like, Pakistan needs to work on it the way India worked on creating false perception or image of a secular democracy. But you see the mindset of Indian government that they are trying to control the foreign policy of developed countries, of Germany, of Pakistan, that how they will pursue their foreign policy and what opinion they have about international conflicts. German foreign minister very bravely pointed out Kashmir as a conflict, and this is a known fact. So, where Indian denial and all this doesn't help India, would never help India, because they have to identify, as I always say, that if the policy of colonization and subjugation would favor India, it has been 75 years and India is unable to stop Kashmiri voices and Kashmiri freedom struggle. So that is what India has to understand. World community would understand, and I hope so that if we would be able to diplomatically advocate the case of Kashmir, Kashmiris themselves would be vocal, and they would make the misery and the misery and plight of Kashmiri Muslims audible and visible to the international community. Definitely there would be a reaction, and that it is very difficult to support an oppressor. One needs to have guts to support an oppressor. So India, the only thing is required that India, as an oppressor, colonial subjugation, Indian colonial subjugation, that should be highlighted. That should
and
be
I mean, that is what
audible
Dr.
and
Sarma,
visible to
Pakistan
the
has been highlighting as far as the Indian subjugation is concerned, colonial subjugation is concerned, and the barbarities that India has been perpetrating on the people, especially on the minorities within the Indian held valley and now within India as well. And the way the German foreign minister has talked with the joint press takeout with our foreign minister shows some kind of an optimism as far as Pakistan's resolve is concerned to not only highlight the issue of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but also find a solution that involves the Kashmiri people so that they can ultimately decide what they want to do with their lives, this region that they call Indian held Kashmir, before it's too late, before the changes, the demographic changes that the Indian government is trying to implement completely change the demography of the Indian held
not
valley.
only Omar, demographic changes, but the delimitation of Kashmir. The way they
I
are
agree
trying
with
to engineer the electoral politics of Kashmir to make Kashmiri Muslims a minority in Kashmir's political public policy system.
That is so true. Thank you very much, Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja, to have joined us, to have talked to us about this joint press takeout between the German and Pakistani foreign ministers, the reaction that came from the Indian side, and how our foreign office has very rightly talked about, in fact, the actual barbarities that India has been perpetrating within the Indian held valley and within India, and that needs to be highlighted, and the world needs to take proper action before it's too late. And as Gregory Stanton, Dr. Gregory Stanton, the head of Genocide Watch, says, India becomes another country where genocide is on the rampage. Our third segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the World Mental Health Day that is being celebrated across the world, including Pakistan, in the wake of calamities such as COVID-19 as well as the floods that have engulfed Pakistan. The need for understanding the mental issues that confront people becomes even more paramount. More in the following report.
Mental health plays a huge role in your general well-being. Being in a good mental state can keep you healthy and help prevent serious health conditions. A study found that positive psychological well-being can reduce the risks of heart attacks and strokes. On the other hand, poor mental health can lead to poor physical health or harmful behaviors. Depression has been linked to many chronic illnesses. These illnesses include diabetes, asthma, cancer, cardiovascular disease and arthritis. Schizophrenia has also been linked to a higher risk of heart and respiratory diseases. Sleep problems. People with mental health conditions are more likely to suffer from sleep disorders like insomnia or sleep apnea. While conditions like depression, anxiety or bipolar disorder may lead to sleep problems can also make existing mental health conditions worse. Access to healthcare. People with mental health conditions are less likely to have access to adequate health care. It may also be more difficult for people with mental health conditions to take care of their physical health. How to take care of your mental and physical health. Exercise is important for keeping physically fit, but it can also help improve your mood. A diet high in fruits and vegetables and low in processed sugars or fats can make you feel better physically and mentally. A good night's sleep is around 7 to 9 hours for adults. Meditation, deep breathing, and focusing your thoughts can all help when you're feeling stressed. Focus on positive emotions and events rather than negative ones. Getting others to help with difficult situations can also reduce the burden that you feel.
Now, the message on this World Health Day 2022 is make mental health and well-being for all a global priority. It is very important under the current situation that the world is reeling under, whether it be the Russia-Ukraine crisis, whether it be climate change, whether it be COVID-19 or the floods that Pakistan is currently engulfed with. Mental health and stability is extremely important. A lot of people consider it as a taboo to talk about it openly with their loved ones, but I think it's time the change happened within us, within our society. To talk more about that, we've been joined by Dr. Aamer Malik. He's a consultant psychiatrist as well as medical director of the NHS in the United Kingdom. Dr. Aamer Malik, thank you very much to have joined us. I know you are here on a very short visit to Pakistan and you did conduct a lot of important moots in Pindi, Lahore and Karachi as far as mental health is concerned. How important is mental health in your point of view, especially for countries such as Pakistan?
Well, we'll start by saying there's no health without mental health. Talking about the Pakistani population and the prevalence of mental health issues, some of the studies that I've read and I'm going to quote says that about 10% of the population has got some kind of mental health issues, and they range from all kind of things. And when you look into the causes of those, as you mentioned, from all the calamities, catastrophe, there are a lot of more issues which are more specific for our Pakistan. They range from obviously stigma, they range from people who are not as much privileged, unemployment, drug use, especially childhood. There's a lot of mental health issues in the children which are not recognized. There's a lot of unknown mental disorder in our country, sadly.
But Dr. Aamer, how can one diagnose on a social level or a familial level if a child, for example, a girl or boy or even an elderly is currently going through mental issues? What are the early symptoms and signs that could make you realize that, oh no, he needs to go see a psychiatrist?
Well, mood reactivity, getting stressed out, feeling low in mood, all those transient episodes we all get, and that's a very normal human reaction. We should be getting it because that's what humans are made up of. But if they remain on a continuity for certain periods of time, then they are a kind of an indication there is a mental disorder there. What we say when your mental health issue, those kind of symptoms that I've just said, if they start affecting your family life, your professional life, your peer relationships, your academic achievements, these are the signs that when they should be actually recognized and some kind of early intervention, early help should be sought.
Now, Dr. Malik, also the fact remains that we as a very strong society are a very closed society as well. Whenever there is an issue concerning a boy or a girl or an elderly woman or a man, those issues are normally resolved within the society, and that people normally don't like to go out and talk about their personal issues with a doctor, especially mental issues, to a psychiatrist or a psychoanalyst or a psychologist. How can change happen within the society, especially in countries such as Pakistan, because I'm sure Pakistan is not the only country where such taboos exist?
It's a very, very valid point. We are proud of our enmeshed family system and the support we do get. But let's be realistic that we don't have any support for the carers. So those informal carers, they do suffer. A parent of a child who goes through long life mental health issues, the way they cope with it without any additional support, it is something that is beyond our imagination. Similarly, an elderly parent going through depression, psychosis, even dementia, and that how they are looked after in a family system has got a lot of bearing on the family members itself. It's just not about the psyche. It does affect physical health as well, because dementia itself is not just about forgetfulness. It's about also losing bodily functions. People start losing mobility, they start losing their incontinence care, they start developing pressure sores. So there's a lot of nursing care that is required in all age groups, so starting from a child to old age. Now, we do say that family setup is very supportive of that, but we do not recognize the pressure they go through. I was reading about the number of psychiatrists available in the country. From some of the studies, says about 500 to 700 psychiatrists.
Well, our president talked about between 400 and 500 psychiatrists today. He was talking at an event, and he also said that 24% of cases concern mental health in Pakistan, and there are not enough people to treat them. How can that change happen within the medical community as well in Pakistan?
Well, to start with, I think it's a very, very positive identification by the president by actually recognizing the prevalence, because a lot of studies, they quote 10 to 20%. But if at that level, people, like our president is saying that it is nearly quarter of population has got some kind of mental health issues, I do think that that's a very good start to start with. I think we need to think about, this is a developing country. We are not going to get a Western mental health service established here so soon. We need to develop what we call paramedical support here. Can we actually develop support of support workers, nurses? There is, as far as I know, there is no specialist mental health nursing qualifications established in most part of the country. So all of these things are that we have to think about to get people getting some help. Because if you just rely on getting to a psychiatrist, I think that is kind of a bit going a bit too far. In Western world, we work in what we call multidisciplinary teams, MDTs, and psychiatrists would be one member of the team. We'll have support structure there, we'll have nurses, we'll have psychologists, and a lot of that is about supporting beyond the biological model. Biological model is just prescribing. Sadly, most of practice here is around giving a medication, a pill. There's no magic pill. You have to think about psychological support and social support. So biopsychosocial, as far as we cannot combine the three things together, we'll always be relying on a psychiatrist. And that in itself is, there's no magic pill, sadly. So we'll have to actually think about how we actually develop other support structures.
It's very interesting, this model that you've just pointed out that is utilized in the West. And I understand it will take some time for it to be understood and to be implemented in countries such as Pakistan. But you also talked about secondary mental health, and that concerns those people who, help those who are already undergoing mental issues. We talked about the parents, sometimes it's the children, sometimes it's the siblings. Shouldn't a system be strong enough to so that whenever a patient goes, not only the patient, but the caregivers are also given the necessary mental treatment?
That's the paramount thing, because if the carer is not getting the support, you can imagine how much they will be struggling. So we are seeding more mental health issues into the people who are caregivers. So carer support is one of the fundamental things we have to think about. Well, my point is, if we just go with the biological model, there is not a single medication that can cure depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, or bipolar, or dementia. So all of these are remedies, and there are remedies with other combinations to be added onto that. We have to think about the parents of somebody who is managing a disabled or special child for lifelong.
Or even the children of a parent who is going through such troubles.
We do know, I mean, there is something which through our Mental Health Awareness Week last week, we actually met with, in Eden College in Karachi, and we actually met with A-level students and their parents. It was a big crowd, and the way they talked about the issues, it does kind of suggest that 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people, they are definitely suffering from those illnesses. So why we are only focusing on that fifth person. That fifth person is actually relying on those other 4 people around them to get them through that. So if we don't support those support structure, sadly we're going to make them stressed out, and anxiety and depression would set in.
All right. Dr. Malik, also, you talked about changing the whole system as far as mental health awareness and mental health treatment is concerned, and of course interesting models that you've just cited. In Pakistan as well, how can this change come within the society? This change that people need to understand, observe and treat themselves whenever they feel there is some kind of a mental illness that they are, of course, going through.
I guess we need to step over the mark of stigma, and that this is something which is holding us back from getting.
Is it an easy task?
Well, it's not easy task, but when you see every 4th or 5th person in some way is suffering from it, the thing which is going to happen then, if you leave it and if you keep absorbing it, by the time it becomes something which is not contained anymore, then it is very hard to treat. So, and I do agree with you, it's not an easy task. But we have actually, in the last week, in 3-4 cities that we've been, we have actually met with a lot of people. They're doing wonderful work. People are working in interiors in NGOs, trying to actually not only get the mental awareness there, but also trying to get the biological treatments if being prescribed. Similarly, we got autism specialists now coming to the country. There's a lot of stuff there, but are we reaching the masses? I don't think so. I think from my own impression is that we are kindly more focused on the bigger cities. We need to
focus on the small cities as well. Finally, Dr. Aamer Malik, how aggressive do countries such as Pakistan need to be when it comes to mental health awareness, mental health treatment and mental health stability within our society under the current circumstances that Pakistan is engulfed in, whether it be end of COVID-19, but of course we've gone through years of COVID-19 and now the floods.
And I think people have not still overcome the trauma from the earthquake. So we talk about this, there's a lot of traumatic stuff there. I wouldn't be able to quantify, but I would say as much as possible, because this is an area where awareness is developing, but we need to actually get into more wider public. We are still focusing on the people who are reaching to us. We are not actually be able to get to people who are hidden in the pockets of society, and they are absorbing all of those issues.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aamer Malik, to have joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of today's program. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news stories and segments that pertain to you, us in Pakistan. Till then, Allah Hafiz.